let me start by saying that I was born in Gelibolu, which is known as Gallipoli in the Western world. And I moved out of that town when I was only 6 years old. But my early childhood was spent there. And we were together with the children of the neighborhood. We were roaming in the cemeteries of the foreign fallen dead. I remember the French cemetery, for instance, and the British cemetery. And there was also a monument, a very short one, just a few pieces of stones put on top of each other. And underneath it said, 50,000 Turkish soldiers were killed here. Oh my goodness, I thought that this was very, very tragic. Where are they? 50,000. And now I think that's in a better shape. And we are receiving so many people from Australia and New Zealand. And we are very happy about that. And also I was the one who took with me Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, who was the Turkish hero in that war, as you know. His statement after the war saying that he was appealing and addressing the mothers of the martyrs and saying that wipe out your tears. Now your fallens and ours are lying side by side on our soil, and they are also our sons and things like that. And I got that framed and so on and took it to the Sandhurst Military Academy in London. And there was an international seminar there, and I was one of the speakers, and they hang it on the wall in the room, and I was very happy about that. And they sent me a photograph showing where they hung it. Well, of course, I'm an university professor. I was the first person to have brought to Turkey the discipline of international relations. I had an MA and a PhD from American universities. As a matter of fact, 2 MAs and 1 PhD in international relations. There was no one before me who had done that. And therefore, now I think we have 147 universities, and all of them have departments of international relations. But I was the first one who started the course. Now, the tradition of Turkish foreign policy since the beginning of the Republic was peace at home and peace abroad. Now, this may sound just as a slogan of some sort. It wasn't. We did our best. For instance, we were out of the Second World War when we had a certain experience, not a good one, during the First World War. And we tried to stop it. We were against fascism, there was no doubt about that. Our sympathies were with the democracies. This was not, in our view, a redivision of the world, but it was a fight against fascism. And Mussolini had come to power in 1922 in Italy, and in 1933 Hitler came to power. And Mussolini frequently made remarks saying that Italy's future lied in the Eastern Mediterranean. And our president at that time, also the founder of our republic, the great Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, he immediately ordered our ambassador in Rome, go and soon see Mussolini and ask him what he meant by that, because we are also in Eastern Mediterranean. Of course, when he met Mussolini, he said, of course, I didn't mean you. And there are others, you know, there's Lebanon and Syria and so on and so forth. So we led a Balkan Entente in the Balkans, trying to bring together the Balkan countries in order to withstand against the great powers there. And the great power that was pursuing a policy of expansion was Hitler's Germany, and also Mussolini's Italy.
Okay, well that was the past.
That was the past in 1930. I'm coming to the present, and also we led the Sadabad Pact in the East, bringing together Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. So this was our attempt to discourage war, because we had to come together, the middle, the small powers and the middle powers against the great powers. They are the ones who would decide, so to speak, but we would say that we are also combined our forces in the Balkans and also in the East and so on. This did not discourage Germany. Now, after the Second World War, we are facing another thing. The United States is now referred to as the only superpower. And they are, in spite of the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991, and in spite of the changes in Eastern Europe and also the abandonment of the Warsaw Pact, there was absolutely no need for NATO to continue. But now the United States is trying to expand its influence and moreover its dominance through NATO. And although for some countries have joined NATO, they were forced in a way to do that, NATO forces have been instrumental in changes even in Northern Africa and also in parts of Asia. Now we are facing a new situation. Now I think all of us should be alert in the Middle East and in North Africa not to be a part of that kind of a policy. This is a policy of intervention. It is a policy of militarism. It's a policy of neo-colonialism. It's a policy of great power dominance in these areas where the United States is trying to multiply the number of its military bases, its presence, its influence, and its piracy in some areas. I think this should be discouraged. Personally, I'm very critical of American policies, and we should watch our security. Actually, the security of the overwhelming majority of the Americans should be based on a different kind of a domestic and foreign policy of their country. Their situation is going from bad to worse. I'm talking about the Americans. And the average citizens don't know that. Even in our country, which we have close relations with the United States, and some of our university professors are publishing books saying that they have a democracy, a wonderful system of government in the United States and so on. I think they should read some of the critiques authored by American scholars themselves who are very critical of the American system. And of course I'm living in Ankara, and unless I read their books and so on, I may not be informed of what is going on in the United States. Of course I had all of my graduate education in that country, and I'm trying to follow what is going on there, but I also consult many American sources, documents, intellectually written, wisely written American books and articles and so on. And I know that they are also very critical of the policies of that country.
We're out of time now, so
right.
Could you formulate some final remarks and perhaps touch on the Syria situation if that's your wish?
Well, of course, now the United States intervened in Iraq and before that in Afghanistan, and in Iraq since 2003, and the havoc that they've caused threatens the division of that country at least into three parts, and has given the possibility of an Islamic state there. Now, Islam is a religion, and only a religion. And we in Turkey are the only country, Islamic country, or where the citizens mostly are Muslims, but we have a constitution saying that we are secular. And this is the only example in the whole Islamic world. And this was one answer that came from us, from those people who created the principles of the Republic of Turkey, that to catch up with contemporary civilization, the first thing to do was to be secular. And so everything else, of course, this did not mean atheism, abandonment of religion, because religion is also a part of a certain culture. There's a history behind it, there's a certain morality behind it, and so on. There are a number of good things in it, and moreover, the original creators of Islam had the frame of mind that was directed towards science in a way. You'll be surprised to read how progressive some of the ideas were, even in the 10th century. But now, there's some radicals. And of course, it's not entirely their fault either. You have to go to the reasons why they have turned this way. Because the ways of fighting against foreign encroachment, such as unity of the Arab world, unity of the Muslims, secularism or socialism and so on, in these countries have failed. And therefore there was a vacuum someplace. And this vacuum now is being filled up by certain extremists. And Islamism had started, for instance, in Egypt and also in India, with the purpose of helping the average individuals, such as giving them some security, some education, and some health, and some food, and so on and so forth. And they did not really entertain of gaining power in their own countries. For instance, after the failure of the 1857 revolt against the British Empire in India, some of the Muslim philosophers thought that what they should have was now a Muslim university. And that materialized in Aligarh, for instance. It's still going on. And I visited that. It's a good campus, a very nice library, and so on. And lots of students. And even with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. I mean, they wanted to help the people because the government was not doing its business and its duties. And there was a king there, King Farouk, and then his father, Fuad, and they had not done their duties. And somebody had to act responsibly towards the people. But now, all these alternatives not having worked, and they've become invalid and unsuccessful. Now they said, now it's up to us to do something about it. Now what can they do? And then now they are acting very brutally. That I'm not saying that, well, they were forced to do it in a sense, but I'm not pardoning them. I don't approve them. Yes, it is true, as it was mentioned during these conferences here, that they women helped, opened up schools. I wouldn't send my grandchildren to those schools. And, but they are trying, in one way, they are trying certain things good for but how can one approve in the 21st century of cutting off other people's heads, chopping them off and so on, where it is unbelievable. And so many now, about 2 million people have passed into Turkish territory. They are so much afraid that they'll get killed for nothing. And they've left behind their land, their houses, their money, and some members of their families and so on. All they want is the right to live and so on. And we are spending so much money in Turkey in order to feed them. I don't think that intervention is going to solve that problem. For instance, our newly elected president in Turkey, he was very much against intervention. For instance, when they tried to pressure him from outside in order to join them physically, militarily, and so on, he said that all we are prepared to do is to accept refugees and feed them and give them a home to stay. Of course, the home that he said were tents, but nevertheless something, with very little furniture, with something to eat, and some money, and they were not prevented from going to other places in Turkey. And some of them, for instance, Syrians, I live in Ankara, in the capital, and I see them on the streets.